Hello everyone and welcome to the CineMilled Garage once again. And we are here today with an SUV and a bunch of our new CineMilled vehicle rigging products. And the purpose of today is basically, an SUV is an extremely popular kind of vehicle all over the world. And it's probably going to be a situation a lot of you guys are trying to figure out how to rig and how to build your kit in order to handle an SUV. And most SUVs have an actually fairly vertical rear window. In the case of the X5 here, it's actually a little slanted, but they all have a nice big surface. And most of them will have a 2-inch receiver hitch. And if they don't, you can easily find one and install one from many different sources, one of which, of course, is CineMilled. We will be offering in our vehicle section there, you're gonna find many different applications. The Torque Lift is the brand, and they're the top brand in the United States. And they have many different fitments for a lot of different vehicles, many of which, of course, SUVs. And so basically, there's lots of ways to skin this cat, right? People have been rigging vehicles for a really long time. What we're gonna do is we're gonna show you how to set this up using all of the products that I developed, so that you can have a really solid setup and so that you know what to buy on our website. And of course, you might already own certain of these pieces. There's a lot of different variations of this, but in my mind, I created these products because I thought this was a much superior way, or all the individual parts are much better than what's out there. And frankly, I think that this kit ends up being a very solid setup for pretty much any SUV. I have used it on this X5. I like the X5. It's very sporty suspension. It's a very sporty vehicle. You can actually chase a lot of sports cars with it. But I've also rigged it up to a Suburban and, lots of other vehicles. So, use your imagination as far as there'll be some variants of this setup we're doing, but it'll pretty much fit most SUVs. And so to go over really quickly what we laid out on the table, we're going to start off with our 10-inch suction cups. And so we got two 10-inch suction cups, and what I mounted to the top of them is our 1.25" modular Speedrail starter. So once again, these starters, you can mount double or single, right? And so we're doing them single in the center. The other option you could use is a grenade. So you can take the grenade and you can actually, it comes with the bolt. You can actually essentially bolt it right there, and you can rig the Speedrail off of there, which is lower, which offers an advantage because you're not so high. So that's an option. But what we're going to do is we're going to use the modular Speedrail starter, and we have here, of course, our anodized Speedrail, which we offer in many different lengths. And this is the starter length, which is a 6-inch. And so that's just going to fall in right in there. And then you just take your Allen and you tighten that guy up. And this is a 3/16 Allen key, in case you were wondering. And I like T-handles because you can spin them. They're quick to operate. So I have a couple of these in my kit. And so I'm just going to tighten these up here because we're going to use them in a second. So I like the modular Speedrail starter because you can vary the length of the Speedrail that you're adding, and so that could help you in your scenario. And yeah, all right. So you got that. The next thing we have here is we have the 360 version of the Houdini. So that is a free swiveling 360-degree, put the Speedrail anywhere you want Speedrail clamp. And right now these are available 1.25", 1.5", and you can mix and match them. So you can go from 1.25" to 1.5" tubing, or vice versa. And then we'll also be offering 3 other different sizes, and they'll all be able to intermingle. So that's a 360 Houdini right there, and we're going to use 2 of them. And then we're going to be using 2 of the fixed Houdinis. We're doing everything in 1.25". It's a size I like to work in. And so basically these come apart. They have the locating pins, If you want details on any of these specific products, we have full tutorial videos for each of them. So I'm just going to give a quick overview. So this is a fixed version, absolutely no play. So we got 2 of those. And then of course we got 2 4-foot sections of Speedrail, as well as the 2 6-foot Speedrails that are going to be the verticals. The 4-foots will be the triangulation tubes up top. And then of course we have our CineMilled Hitch Mount. So that is the basis of the whole system, is the CineMilled Hitch Mount. And the Hitch Mount, we're making it in a 2-inch receiver, which is the most common. We're also going to make it available in the 1.25 inch, which is for like a passenger vehicle. But the basis of the system is the hitch mount. And then you're going to get your 2 verticals here. Now, and that's a good point to point out. So if you're rigging a black arm or similar other arms that all you need is a single vertical speed rail, you know, not to worry. All you need to do is take this. You can just run a single right here off of any one of these mounting points, or you can put this clamp up front and then just run the single vertical right off the tip and get the most farthest away location. So whether you're using the CineMilled arm, which uses 2 vertical speed rails, or something like the black arm, which just uses 1, the hitch will accommodate anything you want. You can go sideways, you can go up. Anyways, lots of options with the hitch. The reason why we use 2 is, if you can imagine, like if you're going to go up a driveway, for example. So if you're getting any sort of transverse load in the vehicle, this happens a lot off-road, for example. If you're using a single tube and the black arm, what'll happen is the clamp can actually slide or slip, and the arm can sort of go left to right, right? And so with the double, obviously 2 points, you can't rotate. So it eliminates any sort of rotation. So what we're going to do is we actually have these CineMilled triple clamps, is what we call them, and a couple different uses for them. You get 2 of them with the CineMilled action arm, but you can also buy them separately. One of the things I like to do, these 2 here are for the action arm. And so I like to put an additional one up top to sort of strengthen the structure. But the other thing that we're going to be offering for this triple clamp is an adapter kit. So you can put this triple clamp setup on your black arm and thus then eliminate any sort of rotation from your black arm. It's a much more secure way of mounting your black arm, because you can go to 2 speed rails. And since it has 3 places for speed rail, you can actually just go to a single speed rail if you still want. So it's essentially a better clamp for your black arm. But yeah, so that's basically it, right? So 2 10-inch suction cups, 2 modular speed rail starters, 2 starter tubes, 2 360 Houdinis, 2 fixed Houdinis, and then we got the speed rail. Since I'm using the action arm, I'm doing 2 vertical speed rails at 6 feet, and then I'm doing 2 4-foot speed rails that are going to be my triangulation tubes. So a total of 4 pieces of speed rail, 2 6 feet, 2 4 feet. Now, of course, these lengths can vary depending on your setup. That's what I recommend. I think you're going to notice that once I'm set up here, we're going to have a little bit of room on the 4-foot top ones. And that's fine, because different cars will require different things. You can always cut these down to an exact length for your specific car. But, you know, I like to leave some breathing room so that I can move things around. A few other things before we get into the actual setup down at the hitch of the CineMilled Hitch Mount is a couple of things I like. I already mentioned, I like to have when I'm doing this, I already mentioned the T-handle Allen keys. I have here a 19mm wrench for the bolts on our hitch mount. Another thing that is possible that some people like to do is there's these 3/8/16 eye bolts, and you can actually screw these into many different points on the cheese plate, or even down here, and that gives you a point to maybe rig to, or I use it to sometimes organize the SDI cable. Anyways, lots of uses for these. This is a cool little piece. Actually, I'm going to look into possibly carrying this in our hardware section on our website. Yes, we do have a hardware section there now where you can buy all sorts of different kinds of hardware. And then last but not least is our sort of final safety for the whole rig, because we are using suction cups, not as the main support for this rig, but as one of the main supports. And so these you can buy at most action sports stores. I forget the exact name for them, but basically it's actually the people that use canoes use these a lot. This, you can make these yourself. I like to buy them pre-made, and I'm going to show you how to use it. But this gives you a soft anchoring point so that you can use ratchet straps as a safety for the whole system once you're done. So we'll get into that in a second. So before we rig the hitch, because this step requires us to open the trunk, I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So I was just talking about these anchor points here, these soft anchor points, and the way these work is you can essentially, they're long for a reason. You can just drape these inside like this and then close the hatch. Boom. All right, you see how this works? So this now gives you an anchoring point so that when you want to safety your suction cups, you can go off here with the ratchet strap and go to the suction cup and safety your system. And if you don't want to use this one because you might be opening, you can use any one of the windows or any. These are great because they can go anywhere. There's lots of other ways you can make a soft attachment point for your safety straps. The other one is using these, you can go to the climbing section in an action sports store, outdoor store, you'll find these. They call these gear loops. We sometimes refer to them as grip loops. And so, for example, if I wanted to rig off of, make an attachment point right here off of the roof rack, you just slip that through like that, and in 2 seconds, you got a very sturdy point for you to run a safety or anything like that. Of course, you can go down under the vehicle and create one of these soft points also. So it's just one of the things I like to do. So let's go ahead and grab the CineMilled hitch mount and get that installed. Here we go. Luckily we have a 2-inch receiver here on this X5. I like to go on the furthermost hole. So you just got to find where that hole is. And get that started in there. I like to get the other one started also, just so before you go fully tight on the other side. And then we grab our 3/4 inch socket, and I got a 1/2 inch drive. And once again, I like to tighten one side at a time. The reason being is once you tighten this side, it pushes the whole mount to one sidewall of the receiver. And go all the way tight on that like that. And then I just go over to the other side. Go by hand. As you can see, it threads in really easily. And then I go fairly strong on these. And there you have it. No play whatsoever. We can see we're moving the whole car. And there's no play in the hitch. A little bit of movement up and down, but all the side play is removed. Now, I like to have this as far out as it'll go, which gives us more room when we're panning till we see the bumper. So, all right, let's go to the next step. All right, so the next step is we have our dual down tubes already pre-rigged. So I like to use a 3/16 socket so I can get my tubes tight. Once again, you don't want to tighten just one side. You want to make sure you're doing this evenly. Same thing on the other side. There we go, a little bit on each side. Try to keep the gaps even. And there's no reason to really go super hard on these because our clamps have much more surface area than other clamps. And so they already apply a lot of pressure. And then of course we still have the last stitch safety stopper, which would be the set screw that we can tighten also. That pretty much shows you how to get the hitch on and all the different things you can do. You can move the tubes up and down the length of it. You can put a single tube right at the end. Today we're using 2 tubes because this is my preferred method. You don't have to do this. You can just use a single tube. I like to use 2, especially because I'm using the CineMilled action arm. But even if I was using a black arm or something like that, I would use 2 with our triple clamps and mounting the black arm to the triple clamps, and that provides a much sturdier solution. So as you can see here, this is already very sturdy and there's no play because we're using the CineMilled hitch mount, and because we use bolts to tighten it onto the hitch, that eliminates unwanted movement that you might find with other hitch mounts. So the next thing to do is to take a little bit of window cleaning solution, and we're going to put a 10-inch suction cup in each corner. So we're going to want to clean this up and get that really nice and clean. I already cleaned the other side, but this is a very important step. And then we're going to take here our 10-inch suction cup, and we're going to position it wherever we deem fit. And then you just pump the air out of it. And you keep pumping until the red line disappears. So right there, now we got our first triangulation point right here. And you're going to want to make sure these are tight. All right, let's do that right there. Make sure they're tight. And so here we go. You can see here, we're moving the whole entire car. So each of these suction cups, I believe, are good to about 175 pounds of force. So we got 2 of them. So that's quite a bit of strength. Obviously, you're going to always want to double check and be paranoid right there. Once again, you can do an eye bolt like I talked about right off of here if you want, or we got the ratchet strap slots that you can even use the grip loops if you want to, and create a point for you to safety, right? So anyways, boom, right? And then you safety it down. So you can do that. So I'm going to leave that there. But now all we got to do is triangulate this to this tube. But before we're going to do that, I'm going to put the other 10-inch suction cup. All right, so now we got our left and right locations for our 10-inch suction cups. We got the 6-inch piece of Speedrail here off of our modular Speedrail starter. So now we're going to take a 4-foot section of Speedrail. Now, once again, this is black anodized Speedrail. Keeps it nice and stealth, really good looking. You, of course, don't need a black anodized Speedrail. We do offer both black anodized and raw aluminum Speedrail on our website. And so basically, all we're going to want to do is connect this one to this one, right? And best way to do that is we're going to do this. is using a fixed Houdini over here. We're going to go straight off of here at a right angle. And then at the suction cup, we're going to use a 360 Houdini. It's an oblique angle over here, and a fixed Houdini would not work in this case. So we're using a combination of the 360 Houdini and the fixed Houdini. In addition, one of the things, if you have the arm mounted low, in our case here with the two, this represents where the action arm would bolt into. I like to sort of, if I have extras of these, which of course I do, I will actually even put an extra one here at the top, and that gives it even an additional little bit of structure. So this is a nice little stiffening thing, so you don't have this tuning fork effect up top. All right, let's connect these. Okay. All right, so we're going to take the fixed Houdini right here, and we set it at a perpendicular 90-degree angle. And we're going to slide that like so. We're going to want to tighten this up a little bit. So you're going to want to do a fairly equal amount of pressure on these. I'm gonna, all right, I'm gonna leave that there. Okay, now I'm gonna take our 360 Houdini right here, and yeah. All right, so here we're gonna use our 360 Houdini, and you can do that, and we're gonna do something like this. And so let's see here, we'll grab the tube. Obviously, this is a lot easier to do with two people. Well, let's see. All right, that goes in there like that. Boom, okay. All right, so I have these both loose, and now I can sort of trim how much I want it to stick out on each end. Now on the suction cup, I try to mount it as low as possible to reduce the leverage effect. And so let me grab my tool here. And this has just got the one bolt, and it tightens both at the same time. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna snug that up. I'm not gonna go super tight. And then on this guy right here, I'm gonna tighten this guy. Okay. All right, so that side is tight. I am going to, let's see here. There we go. Okay. You're going to want to make sure that essentially the tube is in alignment with the clamp, so they're going to seat to each other. So if you leave them sort of loose on the tube, right, to where you can, like right now I'm rotating it this way and that way, and I'm just checking to see if the tube is resting correctly on the clamp, and essentially I'm lining it up, and so which it looks lined up, so I'm gonna tighten this side up. And at this stage I don't really go super tight on anything. I just sort of snug things up so they don't move, and just so I can just make sure I got my alignment correct. So if we loosen this just a little bit, and that's nice, that looks good. And so now I'm going to tighten this side quite a bit. And this is a really strong bolt we put in here, and so you can apply quite a bit of pressure on there and go really hard. So one of the things I like to do on this side of things is essentially I like to put some preload, I guess you could call it, and this helps eliminate any sort of play in the system as far as like all these Speedrail tubes, they bend, right? So if I take this right now, you see that? So that's me bending the tube basically. It's not because there's any play in the clamps, because with the CineMilled clamps, there's no play, right? This is tubes bend around a little bit. So I just put a little bit of forward pressure and then I tighten the clamp. I do a final tighten. So now that's our final tightening. And so what that does is it sort of preloads the system into a state where, so look, you can see here, hopefully in the camera very well, with just the hitch and one 10-inch suction cup, look at that. I'm moving the whole entire car and there's almost no movement. The little bit of movement that's left on here is because we need to always triangulate 3 points, right? We got the hitch, that's 1. We got the suction cup, that's 2. So the third, because we need 3 axes of movement, will be the third suction cup right there. So let's do that one. And we're gonna do that one the same way we did the first one, using the 360 Houdini on the suction cup side and the fixed Houdini on the hitch, the vertical hitch tube. So let's get that done. All right, because we can't get in here with the T-handle, we have a little multi-tool here. It could be any sort of L-shaped Allen. Always good to have multiple tools so we can get in here with the tighter space with that. Now, I just noticed actually my fixed Houdini here is loose. This is why we left the axis hole on the top. We can go straight in without having to take the clamps apart, and I can tighten that main bolt right there. So now we got rid of all the play in that section right there. So like we talked about, now we're going to get our Houdinis in place. This is the swiveling Houdini on this side, and then over here we got our fixed Houdini, and we got our Speedrail. Here's the other side. I already slid the tube in. And, you know, one of the ways to check to see if things are in alignment is you could put your fingers on each side of the tube and see if there's a gap. If there's a gap, then the clamp isn't fully sitting flat. The other thing is you can just loosen it and press against the tube and make sure it's flat. It'll self-align, and then you can snug it back up. All right, so then here we got the fixed Houdini on this side. And then here's a 360 Houdini. So I'm gonna make sure that's sitting nice and flat. And I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this side quite a bit. And like I said, we got beefy hardware there, so you can go very tight. I'll usually won't be using this tool. I'll be using a much bigger Allen that I can apply even more pressure to. And then now we can tighten this clamp right here. And then on this one, we're gonna do the same thing we did on the other side by pulling on tweaking the Speedrail tube a little bit before we give our final tighten. There we go, so it moved a little bit. And there you go, things are seating. And you're gonna wanna apply an even amount of clamping load on either side of this guy. And there you have it. And so basically we're now ready to mount our CineMilled action arm onto here, or by using a single one of these tubes you can mount the black arm, or you can use our triple clamps that I talked about, and then using our black arm adapter brackets you can bolt your black arm to our triple clamp, which then allows you to use the double vertical tube, which then won't let your black arm twist. Either way, you can run the double vertical or you can run the single, just like you regularly want to do with these arms that just have single tube mounts. But as you can see here, we got absolutely no play in any of the joints. It's a zero play system and very sturdy. You can see here we're moving the whole entire vehicle, and it provides the perfect platform. And since most of the weight is being held by the hitch mount, the two 10-inch suction cups are just providing, stabilization in different axes to keep this thing from wobbling or teetering or anything like that. So, that's pretty much it. You're going to want to, as we discussed, potentially add a safety strap to the suction cups. So you can use ratchet straps like we discussed, or you can use the grip loops and any number of ways to secure these to add a little extra level of safety. Last little tidbit here I'm going to add is you can now buy just the female side of our Houdini mounts. You don't have to buy them as a set. So we have them on our website listed as either female or male. And so this is the female side I'll be talking about right now. So the female side, the cool thing is that it's got a number of, it's like a cheese plate here, and it's got a number of threads on the bottom. So this is useful. So for those of you out there shooting on a Ronin 2, and that you may want to mount the battery module not on the Ronin itself, or you might have a transmitter or a number of different things that you don't want to mount on the arm. You want to take some of the weight off of the arm. You can just take here, this is our female clamp right here. I'm going to back the screws out. And you can see here why I like the T-handle, because you can spin it really quickly. And so you can mount the clamp any place you want here on the tube. And that will now give you a place to mount, like I said, a transmitter. You can mount the Ronin 2 battery module or run the power cable to the gimbal and take the weight off the arm. This is a great, it's a great point to, here's a ball head. You can mount the ball head on here, put a witness camera on here or behind the scenes camera. All sorts of uses you can come up with this. The other thing you can do is you can take another 360 clamp. You can mix and match the 360 Houdini clamp sizes. So right now we have the 1 1/4. Of course, we're going to make the 1 1/2, but we're also going to make a 3/8 and a 5/8. And so if you want to go from the Speedrail to a 5/8 rod here and rig something else up, maybe it's another BTS cam or something like that, you'll be able to use the 360 Houdini when you're mix and matching the sizes on it to do that. So that's just a little tidbit there with our female Houdini clamp. And so lastly, the last thing I like to do sometimes is put a little bit of fluorescent tape, paper tape on there, just to mark the points so people don't hit their head. Of course, normally there'd be an arm out here, so, but maybe I would do it out here. But that's pretty much it, guys. Here's our fully built setup that we're doing today, and all you need to add now here, we're all set up, ready to go to put our CineMilled action arm on. Of course, if you're using our CineMilled triple clamp with the double verticals, you can also buy the black arm adapter kit. And of course, this would be the same setup with the single vertical tube. All this would look like is this clamp would probably be up here, and both of the triangulation speed rails would be holding onto the same piece of single speed rail. But since we got double speed rails, we can do this. And, you know, it's super sturdy, as you can see here. You know, I'd trust this with anything. And in fact, I've driven this whole setup over 100 miles an hour through twisty roads, and it's never failed me. Of course, never hurts to run a little safety strap just to be safe. But, you know, Right now what I'm going to do is do a quick recap of all the parts so that you can have a shopping list for when you go on to CineMilled.com and order and replicate this setup. So we're going to start with the CineMilled 2-inch hitch mount. It could be the other size we have also. Select whatever size Speedrail that you're going to be using diameter wise. I'm using 1.25 inches. And the next thing I would do is then let's talk about the different speed rails. We got 2 6-foot long speed rails, we got 2 4-foot long speed rails, and then we got 2 6-inch long speed rails to use on the modular starter right here. So that's all the speed rail. I'm using black anodized because I like a nice, clean, sleek, sexy build. We do have it in bare aluminum as well. The next thing we're going to do is you're going to add to your list here the 2 10-inch suction cups, rigging suction cups. And then you're going to want to add the modular speed rail starter, so 2 of those guys. And then moving on to our clamps, we got 2 fixed Houdini clamps. And this is the set, the pair. And then we got the set of the 360 Houdini clamp right here. So 2 of those, 2 of these. And, you know, optionally, you could add a triple clamp if you're looking to, you know, add a little rigidity here, or you get 2 of these with the CineMilled action arm. But if you want to use the double vertical with your black arm, you're going to want to add 1 of those. And then finally, we got here our female only Houdini clamp that we're going to use to rig up the Ronin 2 battery module. And that's pretty much it. You probably want to add a couple of these from the Action Sports store, maybe a couple of these, and to do your safety straps. I remember we're talking about the canoe tie-down thing here to the window. Those are all very useful things to own in your rigging kit. And that is pretty much it. We got 2 of a lot of things, and that is sort of your basic setup. I actually have a front hitch on my vehicle, and this same setup, I just moved to the front. If you don't have a hitch on your particular vehicle, you could potentially rig up a main mounting point from 10-inch suction cups, but we're going to cover that in another video. And we're also coming up with alternatives for the hitch. We have a couple ideas we're working on. But that's pretty much it. Now you have your shopping list, and you can go out and build and assemble your own system. And as you can see here, once this breaks down, it's actually not a lot of pieces. It was all laid out here on my table. It's not too much to travel with. And, you know, pretty much you can get an SUV anywhere. So it's a very, I would say, common and popular system. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions on the CineMilled gear specifically, we have full tutorial videos on each of the individual pieces that go into much more detail about all the different things you can do with each of the individual pieces. We also have the CineMilled Facebook group. You can always comment on this video and I'll reply. And then finally, once you get your rig together and maybe you're stuck on something, or you want just to show it off or get people's opinion on what you put together, we have an awesome vehicle rigging and cinema car group on Facebook. Got over 5,000 members in there, a lot of really experienced people, so it's a great place to share your build or ask questions. And so that's pretty much it. And thanks. I hope you find this helpful. I can't wait to get this thing out there and get some shots. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you on set.